Good afternoon, everybody, and you're very welcome to our webinar here this afternoon, which is focused on new and emerging opportunities for chartered accountants. And this is certainly a topic that has sparked a lot of interest with a strong level of interest and bookings for the webinar. I'm joined here today by my colleagues Dave Reardon and Stephen Maguire from our careers team, and we also have a recording from Peter Gillen, a member as well, who will share his experiences. I'm the executive head of member experience here in Chartered Accountants Ireland, and I'm delighted to introduce this webinar to you today. And I want to give you an overview of the objectives of our webinar today. So it's basically to provide you with insights and developments and some insights in terms of the trends of the profession, to help you to better understand the opportunities that are emerging. And we'll give you some examples of those as we go through the webinar today. And we'll also give you some guidance and a steer in terms of the skills that you need to be focusing on. It's a question that we hear quite a lot from members in terms of, well, look, you know, where should I be focusing my efforts in terms of professional development? So we can certainly take you through that. We'll also introduce you to some of the supports and services that you can avail of free of charge as a member. And all of this essentially is designed to help you to better navigate your career and to ensure career success and, of course, job satisfaction. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over now to my colleague Dave Reardon, himself an FCA, who will talk to you about the opportunities in the area of SMEs and also the area of entrepreneurship.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, everyone. You're all very welcome. And I'm just going to set the tone by speaking about the SME sector, the startup and entrepreneurial space, and how that affords opportunities to ACAs and FCAs across the country, NI and ROI. So where to start? This is a busy slide, but it'll kind of capture a lot of what I want to say, I suppose. If you're a chartered accountant and you want to grow your soft skills essentially, and really accelerate yourself into business leadership, and as I say here, climb the ladder into business leadership. In an SME or a smaller entity, there are much less rungs to climb. And what it can afford you in terms of fleshing out your experience, your skills, I've listed here in some of the bullet points. So just to look at them very briefly and just to kind of, you know, if you're working in multinationals or you're inclined as an ACA to move into the multinational space, it might be interesting to look at the SME sector. A lot of ACAs, when they qualify or even later in their career as FCAs, want to expand their commercial skills, their kind of business acumen. And that's certainly something you'll get by moving into the SME space or a startup. Strategic direction is something you'll get exposure to if you go into a small company. SME is probably defined as anywhere from $1 million to 10-20 million in terms of turnover. So these are the responsibility levels you're gonna find. Decision-making responsibilities, forecasting exposure, forward-looking accounting, kind of directing the company and future accounting, and forecasting. Business leadership is the key spotlight and focus within the Institute at the moment. So again, these are all elements of what you will get by moving into the SME space. Additionally, then, you know, if you get into a really good company, which has an exciting growth pattern to it, it's a good sector, and we'll look at a few of those shortly. You can get into mergers and acquisitions. You can find yourself doing due diligence on the market and landscape for that company. So it can be very exciting as a chartered accountant to I suppose, flesh out the business acumen. You often find yourself wearing multiple hats. You can get involved in HR. You can become much more operational as an ACA, and that can be quite exciting. You know, you'll have trained for 3.5 years. You'll have maybe done some accounting post-qualification, and now you want to become more business oriented. So in an SME, I've placed many ACAs who find themselves involved in technology, systems, HR, and so on, and that can make for some very interesting stories. So early finance growth, growing a division, hiring accountants into your team and growing the team, can be a very exciting aspect. And again, it speaks to the soft skills and the responsibility levels of becoming a business leader. So early startup fundraising, venture capital, again, very exciting landscapes, and building out those supplier supports, third party relationships, etc. For an SME can be exciting as well. So in basically it hits an accelerator on your soft skills. It expands your business intelligence, and we have to remember, I suppose, as chartered accountants, we're choreographing our career journey. So, what you want to amass along that journey is some really exciting stories and key exposures, responsibilities along the way. So this moving into an SME or a startup will add some really exciting paragraphs to your CV and build a picture of you becoming a business leader along the way. And we have to keep an eye on our personal brand, as you grow as a chartered accountant, ACA or FCA. So, that high energy multi-hat role in a smaller company can really boost your personal brand. So that's the key message from that. So some emerging areas. What are the growth in emerging areas? I mean, it's very diverse. Fitness, gyms, sports facilities. Like it's a really growing area. For example, in Ireland at the moment, every new gym, every new sports entity that gets set up will need a financial controller, will need an ACA or an FCA in some capacity. So well worth tuning into that, keeping an eye on it as you do your market mapping alongside your career plan. For example, like Irish hockey would need a financial controller, or Croke Park needs a financial controller. Westwood gyms need financial controllers. So I suppose just expand your thinking on all of that. Similarly, fractional CFO is becoming a big spotlight at the moment. And many FCAs are moving into that consulting space and using the extent of their and the wealth of their financial experience. So it's a breaking area. We're seeing companies set up in that fractional CFO space. Marketing, advertising, very popular areas at the moment. A sort of a sideline example would be the YouTubers that are making incredible careers out of being influencers and everything that goes with that. So there's emerging areas on that marketing and advertising space. Stephen will probably speak to the technology and fintech side of things. Fintech is certainly the overlap between accounting and technology is just continuing to advance. So if you have an interest in both, keep a close eye on those. Digital Hub, keep a close eye on what's coming through there in terms of startups. Life sciences have long been a growing area in Ireland, and pharmaceuticals, obviously. In saying that, what we've noticed recently is the chemist chains, or the pharmacy chains in Ireland have been growing and doing extremely well. I'll mention Orla Maher, Maher's pharmaceutical chemists. She spoke at our conference there recently in terms of business leadership, and as an example of that growth in that area. The IDA in Ireland have called out Ireland as being a global centre for life sciences. So again, you might want to put that on your radar. And the reason I look at some of these sectors is because, like, if as a chartered accountant, if you move into a sector which is growing, expanding, has exciting developments and change within it, it can make for extra responsibilities, it can make for interesting projects, it can make for an exciting career path that's very dynamic, energetic, and positive. So that's what you're looking for as a chartered accountant, and why these new emerging areas can be very interesting as you develop your career. Construction, housing, obviously, is a big piece in Ireland at the moment. Everything from charities in the housing space, we're seeing as clients, all the way through to construction. We'll see a couple of examples of that in the next slides. Food and beverage, you just have to go into any of the major retail outlets at the moment to see all the Irish food and beverage startups on the shelves. So keep a close eye on those, sustainability and ESG reporting and so on. I think Peter's going to cover that off to some degree as well, but we'll touch on it. So the landscape then in terms of Irish SMEs, just to focus on the SME space for a minute, this is really just to highlight that growth prospects look good. A lot of cautious optimism out there, notwithstanding the bigger picture globally. A lot of this is a survey, a government survey, and the outlook looks really good in terms of expectations and hiring patterns in the next 12 months. So the temperature looks good. We'll see, I suppose, from the next slide that yeah, 2/3 of all employees in Ireland are working in SMEs. That's north and south of the border. So over 1 million people in Ireland are employed by SMEs. So don't shy away from it. There's often a kind of a culture and an association with Ireland of multinationals and PLCs in the corporate space. And, you know, a lot of chartered accountants try to gravitate towards that. But as you can see, there's an awful lot to be gained in terms of accelerating your career through the SME and the exciting startup space. Look, you have to keep your radar switched on in terms of what's happening in various sectors. Some SMEs are navigating rising costs, shifting priorities, Trump, global uncertainty, tariffs, etc. So you need to keep your finger on the pulse in terms of what's happening globally and how it's going to impact the sector or the SME space as well. But ultimately cautious confidence as per the SBCI. And as I said there, global exposure, we're a small open economy in Ireland, so it brings opportunities but also vulnerabilities. So you need to keep a close eye on those risks. We're massive exporters and everything that comes with that, and we're very reliant on the US as well. So, you know, you need to be very vigilant of that. This slide, again, I think Peter's going to touch on it a little bit, but it's worth, like, I mean, the green space has been huge. Ireland has unique opportunities in the green space over recent years. And it's a very interesting, again, government slide highlighting solar panels, heating, energy, etc., electrical vehicles. These are all key areas to be aware of when you're maybe market mapping and looking at career opportunities within the SME space. So two key messages just of note, and I'm like a broken record when it comes to speaking about building your network as a chartered accountant. Like at the end of the day, Ireland is, you know, you're 2 degrees from whatever the strapline is, but building your network is the most important message that the Institute can probably give you as a chartered accountant, particularly if you're looking to move into that SME space. You know, use LinkedIn effectively. That's a webinar for another day. But get close to the Institute, build that network, and I just mentioned there the Charter Star 2026. If you've got an entrepreneurial dimension to your ambitions, there's examples down through recent years where the Chartered Stars have had fantastic career and win behind them from the fact of winning or even just getting involved in the Chartered Star. So put it on your radar for next year if this whole space is something you're interested in. Examples of Fiona Smitty, who was a winner and set up her own SME in years gone by, and garnered great experience from that. Nifemi, I'm sure most people will probably be familiar with Nifemi B and her personal brand and profile on social media as an entrepreneur and forging ahead on that space. Mark Scully with a self rebrand and lots of presentations that he's doing. Una O'Hagan, I mentioned earlier on in terms of Mars Pharmacy. I saw her speak at the Business Leadership Summit, and it was a really, really good, passionate presentation. She joined them as a young chartered accountant, worked there for several years, and then she moved on within industry, but she said to the owner when she was leaving, if you're ever selling this business, let me know. I want to be part of that opportunity. So again, sometimes it's just having your radar switched on in terms of entrepreneurial startup opportunities and so on. And again, coming back to that message from the Institute that chartered accountants are business leaders, and to keep that hat on. The logos I have at the bottom here are clients that we've worked with in the recent past, again, which have very entrepreneurial and SME exciting kind of trajectories. KCC Group in the construction sector, Whiteswell over in Galway in the heart medical equipment space. Future Energy speaks for itself. Johnson Hannah, actually our president from last year in the Institute, Barry Doyle, leads that, and they're in the legal administrative shared service centre space, whole new groundbreaking area. Similarly, Dental Care Ireland, we're a very exciting client. An FCA member is the CEO of that organisation. He has, I suppose, looked at all the practices in the dental space across Ireland and said, I'll take all the back end finance issues and I'll take that off your plate. You guys focus on the dentistry and I'll do all the finance and accounting piece for you. And they've gone from strength to strength. Equilume, a really exciting recent client where there's proprietary science, patents, a global footprint, albeit a very small SME at the moment. They look like a very exciting sector in terms of the equine sector in Ireland, which we're synonymous with. Growing finance divisions. Again, they've got an FCA at the helm, and you know that's so the future looks good as per previous slides in the message there. Final slide, really just a kind of a reiteration. The climate action plan is coming down the line. This means opportunities for chartered accountants. Renewable energy, there's a goal of 70% renewable energy in Ireland from the government. ESB is a massive client of ours. And again, you need to note this in the energy space. There's a massive reduction in fossil fuels coming down the line. Bord na Móna is changing its stripes massively in this whole space. Agriculture, crop rotation, circular economy, recycling and focus on food waste prevention, etc. Transportation means electric buses, electric vehicles, EV charging infrastructure, cycling. So as a chartered accountant, you need to be thinking about all of these spaces and perhaps opportunities to move into them. New EU regulations on the impact on nature in terms of biodiversity, and the 5-year carbon budget on the climate action plan. So that's enough for me. Hopefully just sets the tone a little bit. I'm going to hand you over to Stephen now, who's going to look at the technological and technology landscape and how that's influencing us in terms of opportunities for chartered accountants in the few years ahead. Thanks. Over to you, Stephen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you today for passing it over. I am going to be touching on kind of opportunities in leveraging technology. So as a new and innovative products like AI and automation tools are continuing to kind of come onto the market and revolutionize industries around the world, accounting really is it doesn't have an exemption to that. So technology is growing and is becoming more prevalent in the industry. So I'm going to touch on some of the key areas which are transforming accounting at the moment. So the first one I want to touch on is cloud-based accounting software. This is an area you are probably all familiar with. You may have even be using it currently in your roles. This is the QuickBooks, NetSuite, Sage, and Xero, along with a host of other different versions. Oracle's another one. You probably have all used this. You use it daily. It's part of your daily routine in the workplace. So this software is obviously remarkably popular. The whole purpose behind it is to allow accountants to work from anywhere, work with anyone anywhere, and it's not as expensive to install or to run because everything's hosted in the cloud. So it saves money and time for businesses. And it's an easy way to share data with your team members and to help everyone kind of stay informed and on the same page. This software isn't really going anywhere. If anything, it's going to enhance, it's going to get more benefits to it, and it's going to grow rapidly over the next few years, particularly with what I'm touching on the next slide. So it is important to have an experience with these tools. You're probably using one now. More or less, they all have very similar, they do the same thing. Their interfaces are different. So if you're using one and a role you're looking for in the future uses another, don't worry about that. You'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. Most are very, very similar in that. The big one for the accountancy space, and probably as everyone has heard an awful lot about over the last little while is AI. So AI is a new technology in the accountancy profession, along with a host of other industries around the world. The benefits, particularly to accountants with AI, is that it can remove routine tasks by automating certain activities, such as like data entry, invoice processing, and reconciliations. Now, I want to make this part really, really clear. It's something I'm quite passionate about, I would say, is that I want to make sure that you don't leave here thinking AI is going to take everything over. You and accountants will still be required to ensure the AI output is correct and functioning properly, and your skill set will be switched. So, for example, if you're using AI correctly, in theory, it should help you with the processes, with the kind of automated tasks above, and allow you to focus on more value added tasks. So, a wonderful kind of quote I heard recently was that AI and automation will allow you to support the future of the business rather than analyzing the past of the business. Um, so that's a unique way to look at it. So the accountant's skill sets will shift slightly and what you're focusing on will, but you will still be very much required and needed to make sure these systems are utilized appropriately. Machine learning is another one. So this machine learning creates algorithms which analyze vast data sets to detect irregularities, forecast different trends, and enhance decision-making processes. So again, I want to reiterate that this is an aid to accountants and allows for individuals to make quicker decisions based on the data that's provided in these data sets. So the key benefits of the kind of AI and machine learning I want you to take away from this is that real-time analytics like these will allow for better, faster, and more accurate decision making. The improved efficiency should allow more time back to accountants to again be able to utilize the skill set in a more analytical and forward-thinking sense. And, you know, from a very business reflection standpoint, it gives you businesses greater fraud detection and compliance monitoring. So it allows businesses to really focus in on those two areas. Another area of tech that is becoming huge across the board, but particularly in accountancy, is data analytics. So this involves the use of techniques to extract insights from financial data. So it enables accountants to make more informed decisions. So as you can see through these slides and what I'm discussing is that all these technology benefits are geared towards and enabling you to be more forward thinking, to come at problems from a different angle, and to utilize your skill set in a different way. So some of those areas are performance evaluation. So accountants are using data analytics to evaluate business performance by analyzing revenue data, production numbers, and other metrics, and then help identify areas of improvement and making data-based, data-driven decisions for the company as a whole, rather than looking at things from the past. You're again analyzing and making decisions for the future. Risk mitigation is another big one. So by analyzing current and historical data, accountants can uncover potential risks and manage them in real time. So this includes addressing funding needs and potential investment opportunities. So again, if used correctly, these tools can allow our members and accountants to tackle things before they happen, in the middle of when they're happening, rather than after. So rather than fixing the mess or cleaning it up after, you're challenging it head on. So understanding customer behavior is another one. So this will allow the data will allow you to track and review customer spending patterns, which can inform accountants and the business as a whole on strategies and growth plans moving forward. Forecasting and planning. So as I mentioned, this is all tying in together, this is your predictive analytics, which enables you as accountants to create forecasts based on the historical data and current market trends. So it's assisting you in budgeting and resource allocation. Fraud detection. So advanced analytics tools can continuously monitor financial transactions, making it easier to detect fraudulent activity and ensure compliance with regulators. So if anyone is currently working in data analytics or is working for an entity that uses it, Power BI is the most predominant software currently being used. So if you're using that currently, that is the forefront of where we are. As I'm saying, all of this, and I'll keep coming back to this, is providing accountants with the ability to kind of work into the future rather than kind of analyzing and reporting on the past. One of the kind of final areas of opportunity and with technology for accountancy is blockchain. Now, blockchain is kind of directly tied to cryptocurrencies. However, I will want to reiterate and make it very clear that blockchain is a completely separate form of technology. One, it does not rely on the other. It's just one is leveraging the technology. So blockchain offers a decentralized and tamper-proof ledger system. So this ensures transparency and security in financial transactions in particular. And its skill set and what it brings very kind of strongly and allows for very direct kind of managing of audit trails and real-time financial reporting. So some of the key benefits to this are greater trust and traceability in financial reporting, immutable transaction records, and increased efficiency in audits and reduced fraud risk. To provide kind of real-world context to this, 2 of the big 4 are currently exploring and testing using blockchains for the audit accuracy. So it is becoming more and more prevalent in this space. And as usually goes, if 2 of the big 4 are looking into it, it is only a matter of time before it starts cascading downwards and it's used as a tool across the industry. So I want to obviously provide a path kind of into the future and as I said earlier, put a focus on how this is beneficial. So if as an accountant, if you want to thrive in this growing tech kind of era we're moving into, as an accountant, there's a few things you can do. So ensure you have familiarity with the digital tools, particularly for data analytics and AI. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be an expert, but having familiarity in using the tools is a positive. So stay informed, because obviously as this progresses and AI and machine learning prevalence increases, it's more likely to come down with regulatory changes. So stay informed about any changes that happen. And if, for example, with Accountancy Ireland, we have here industry innovations and kind of up and coming new tools or uses of those tools within the industry. And then obviously, given the fact that hybrid and remote working still exists, embrace the ability of these tools to work remotely with people who are working remotely or with people around the world. That will help kind of breed ideas and future-proof the industry and your careers. Like, before I kind of hand over, my final real prominent information I want to get across is that there are other opportunities with technology as well. So as tech becomes more prevalent and grows more, the companies building this potentially as a future career path, as was being mentioned earlier, is with companies using and needing accountants to create the software, to make the software more accessible, more accurate, more prevalent, more useful to accountants. So that is a potential career path into the future as well. So while those roles are slowly filtering in at the moment, it could become a bigger thing further down the line. So well worth keeping an eye on as your career progresses. So as I am now, I am going to kind of hand you over to a video we have from one of our members who currently works in ESG and sustainability, to hear from him about shifting his career into that sphere and the opportunities that comes with it.
Hi everyone, my name is Peter Gillen, and over the next few moments and minutes, I'll be giving you a very brief overview of how I have pivoted into sustainability in my own career in recent years, and then also hopefully provide some tangible advice which you can apply to your own career. Yeah, so I suppose I should probably start from the start very briefly. I studied business and economics in college, and then I took up a training contract in PwC, where I worked for 6 great years. And I worked primarily in IT audits. I worked with clients in the banking and insurance sectors primarily, and I would have built up my skill set of knowledge in things like risks and controls and the importance of having a robust control environment when running a business. I suppose after those 6 years, and it was actually during the pandemic, like a lot of people, the great rethink, almost like everyone started rethinking what it is they want to do with their careers. And I quickly realized that I would really love to pivot into sustainability. So I started doing my own background research first of all. So I started, and the more I looked into it, the more I realized what a wide breadth and big spectrum ESG really is, whether across each of the environmental, social, and governance pillars. And I quickly realized I probably have to narrow it down maybe a little bit further into what it is exactly I wanted to do. And I can talk a bit about that a bit more in a few moments. But once I realized that, then I very luckily got the opportunity to work in the sustainability advisory team in Grant Thornton, where I had 2 fantastic years, and I had an opportunity to work at EFRAG on secondment. EFRAG are the EU organization who are responsible for drafting the EU standards, reporting standards, which are adhered to by any company in the EU who is complying with CSRD. And then after 2 great years at Grant Thornton, I decided it was time and I was ready to make the move from professional services into industry. So I moved over to AIB, where I initially joined the first line assurance team in their group strategy and sustainability department. I would have primarily helped to audit their various sustainability metrics, for example, and anything that's disclosed in the public domain. And then after a year there, I suppose I transitioned into the sustainability disclosures and ratings team, where I am at the moment, and where I'm a manager, and where I primarily oversee our public disclosure of our sustainability statement, which complies with CSRD, but also oversee our various ESG rating assessments, which are very important to both internal and external stakeholders, such as investor groups and customers alike. And that's a whistle-stop tour of my career to date. Yeah, so I suppose my advice would probably be a little different depending on what stage of one's career you're at. So, for example, if you're a bit earlier on, like for example, if you're just out of college, perhaps you've done a sustainability course in college or at third level, perhaps you haven't. If you haven't, I wouldn't worry. There are plenty of free courses online, whether it's on the likes of Coursera website, or also the TCFD website's very good. But there are many courses out there. But I guess the main thing for me is, regardless of whether you have the background and, I guess, formal qualification of some sort to in sustainability or not, if you're applying for a role in sustainability, it's really important that your enthusiasm and passion for the area comes across. For example, at the time when I moved from PwC into Grant Thornton, I didn't have any sustainability experience or qualification, even though I was moving into a sustainability team. So it was really important that I illustrate to the interviewer and also to myself that I had done some like a background reading, like for example, what is it in across the environmental, social, and governance pillars that really interested me? What's happening in the world today? Where do I think it could possibly go? You don't have to have all the answers. You can't possibly be an expert in all areas, but I think it's really important that you have a good sense of what's going on generally in the world, and also what areas of most interest to you, because I guess interviews definitely work both ways. You might think the role is perfect based on what's written, but the interviewer might say, "Oh, look, you're saying you're really interested in this specific area of ESG and sustainability, but you know what? We don't really do much work in that. But you know what our colleagues in this other department do, or or something like that, and that'll actually lead you to a better outcome in that you'll be more likely to be in a role that is a better fit for you. I'd also I also would encourage, like I said, I guess in summary, I would encourage anyone at any level of your career to really consider formalizing your existing sustainability and ESG knowledge by doing an online course, whether it's a diploma or some sort or whatever it might be. The likes of obviously the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ireland have many fantastic courses, but so do many other providers that I would encourage you to look at. In terms of perhaps people who are a bit further along in their career journey, I would encourage you to, I guess, take stock of what skills and experience you have to date, because I guess though sustainability is growing and developing in front of our eyes, there are a few new roles being created afresh. Like, for example, like I said, I'm in a sustainability disclosures and ratings role that didn't exist 10 years ago. But there aren't that many roles like that just didn't exist before. What's happening in 90% of cases is ESG and sustainability is being layered in on top of existing roles. And it's people who have been in their existing roles. It's just more their remit or roles of responsibility are expanded to fit sustainability, or perhaps they were already doing that and it just wasn't called sustainability in many cases. So that could be the case, I guess. But I suppose my advice for someone who's a bit further on in their career who is looking to pivot more into sustainability is that there's a great actually Japanese concept called ikigai, and basically imagine 4 circles which are overlapping a bit like a Venn diagram, and in the 4 circles you write down the following. So in the first circle you would write down what you're good at. So that's like the skill set you've built up over the years based on your experience. And the second one, you write down what you love, what you're passionate about, what you're really interested in. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about what in each of the environmental, social, and governance pillars that make up ESG and sustainability as a whole are you really passionate about? The third one is, well, what does the world need? Like, what's there a demand for? What, like, for example, like you might wish there was a role in a specific area, but there just might be no such role in existence or a demand for such a role if it hasn't been created already. And I suppose the fourth is, will I get paid for it? So when you write all those things down, you want to get the idea being you want to be as close to the overlap in the very middle of that Venn diagram with the 4 circles as you possibly can. And that's actually what I did when I was considering whether to move into sustainability or actually go down a completely different track at the end of my time with PwC and just before I went to Grant Thornton. I just found it a really useful exercise. So it's just worth bearing in mind that it's not that if you want to pivot into sustainability that you have to scrap everything you've done to now. Like, you should be able to leverage, or you should definitely be able to leverage what you've got gathered to date, whether they're your soft skills in your management style and your interpersonal skills, or whether it's your maybe the harder skills, like, for example, your presentation skills, your report writing, your auditing skills, those kind of things. Like, for example, in my current role, I would leverage very, very heavily and rely very heavily on the audit and assurance skills I built up in my time in PwC, but my ESG and sustainability skill set I leverage highly and heavily from my time in Grant Thornton. So I almost got in a way I almost got a Venn diagram of those 2 experiences and picked something in the middle. And all of a sudden I was auditing sustainability and metrics when I first moved into AIB. So it's about using the skill set and experience you've already built up to date, and then at the end of the day, applying it in the area that you hopefully are most interested in, or putting you on a path to eventually get there. Because often, as we know, we don't always, particularly if we're a moving company, we don't always get the exact team or exact area we want to be in straight away. Often you have to join an adjoining team with the idea in the medium to long term to pivot into that field. So I'm conscious I threw a lot of information at you there. I suppose in summary is I'd highly encourage everyone to look into courses, whether those be online, hybrid, or in person, to upskill yourself and I guess formalize and cement your already existing sustainability knowledge, because that's very attractive to employers and interviewers. And the second of which is to leverage your existing experience, which for the most part is very transferable. Very little of it isn't. So definitely don't undersell yourself. I suppose the very best of luck in pivoting if that's what you want to do. Thanks, everyone.
It's great, and thank you to Peter and my colleagues for sharing their insights. And essentially now, Peter's, I suppose, video was a really good segue into the area that I want to touch on now, which are the skills that you need and require for success. And I suppose what I'm going to focus on today is more the soft skill side of things, because within a world that is changing quite rapidly, these are the areas that I feel are, particularly important. It's not to say the technical skills aren't, obviously, but it is about those kind of soft skills. And like Peter said, kind of building on those skills and bringing those with you. But it's also about that, what's referred to as that skill fluidity, and being able to, kind of leverage different skills and move from different skills. So there's a number of key skills that I'm going to touch on today. The first of which is adaptability. And I think Stephen mentioned, like I made it quite clear, that within the kind of the technology space in particular, we do need to be very much adaptable. We need to be able to kind of live with uncertainty and ambiguity and things changing around us, quite quickly, particularly in relation to kind of career paths, which don't always tend to be as linear as they might have before. There's typically kind of flatter structures within organizations. So it is all about being able to kind of go with the flow of that, look and embrace and look for and embrace those kind of opportunities as they come up, and very much be in that kind of growth mindset. And Carol Dweck really kind of focused on that. She'll be very famous for her work in terms of developing a positive mindset. So that is something that I would encourage you to kind of look at change and see it as an opportunity, and equipping yourself with being able to be adaptable. And a lot of this is around developing that mindset, seeing the challenges as opportunities to learn, looking, kind of for feedback from certain situations, or if there has been a blip along the way, using that as a learning opportunity to kind of say, well, look, what have I learned from the situation? How can I adapt better going forward? And starting to be comfortable with that kind of uncertainty and ambiguity. And a good way to do this is to, step outside of your comfort zone and maybe volunteer for other projects that are going on within the business. Moving on then to collaboration, again, very much kind of a big focus for businesses in general, and promoting that culture of collaboration and people working together kind of cross-functionally, breaking down those silos within the business. So anybody demonstrating an ability to do that, and again, it comes down to your mindset and looking for opportunities to kind of work together and thinking collectively about the team, the people around you, and looking for that, opportunity to improve productivity across the organization, and, to kind of, I suppose, leverage potentially some of the technology in this space to help you do that. It could be really beneficial in terms of your career. But essentially, collaboration really is underpinned by strong communication. So it's making sure that you're cognizant of your ability to communicate across a range of platforms, particularly in the technological world, and then building that trust and respect, not just within your own team, but across the organization. So again, I suppose if you were to say, how do you develop that skill? It's really increasing your kind of self-awareness and your empathy, I suppose, and ability to connect with people would be really important. So you have those relationships and build those relationships that will enable that collaboration. Focus on the shared goals and outcomes. Don't just focus in terms of your own. Look at it from a wider perspective, because you'll be seen as somebody who adds value across the organization, not just in terms of your own team, which will position you very well for other opportunities, across the organization. And, Dave mentioned this about, kind of looking at other areas of opportunity. Stick your head above the parapet, look for new perspectives, and look for opportunities to kind of, again, step out of that, I suppose, kind of your comfort zone. And again, opportunities to take on projects, or get involved in a project. And essentially projects are all about collaboration. And I mentioned relationships. Building out your network is really quite important, both internally within your own organization as well as externally. I've mentioned communication already, and this is critically important, across the board as you develop your career, and being able to really, I suppose, get your message across and land it in a world and an environment where we have so many messages coming at us. So it's really thinking about the audience, how you want that message to land. And, in particular, within your roles as chartered accountants, it's breaking down any barriers that there might be there between kind of finance and non-finance, building relationships, building the lines of communication across the organization. And a good way of doing that is that whole piece around storytelling and bringing the numbers to life. It also relates to what Stephen was saying in terms of data analytics, and essentially data analytics builds that story for you, gives you the numbers, gives you the analysis that you can then, stand up and give a presentation, and it brings those numbers to life. But it is essentially how you do that, and how successful you are in terms of making that, I suppose, that impact. Dave mentioned personal branding earlier, and that too is a form of communication in terms of how you show up on a day-to-day basis, your LinkedIn profile, your CV. So it should be considered as part of your overall communication style, your communication approach, and being more aware of, I suppose, the body language and the non-verbal cues that you're landing. So it is about self-awareness. Looking for feedback again will be important here in this space as well, to not to be afraid to ask people, well, look, how does that message land with you? Have you any suggestions in terms of how I can improve it? That can be really, really important. And as well, not to be afraid to, engage more with certain platforms like LinkedIn to start to develop, kind of messaging or brand in that space. And then leveraging some of the technologies that, Stephen has alluded to already, in terms of Power BI being one of those. Another area then, our skill set, that's really, really important as you develop your career, will be that whole area of critical thinking. So it's taking the data, it's taking the numbers, it's taking all of the solutions, but being able to then kind of objectively kind of stand back from those, to draw conclusions, to exercise judgment, and to have the confidence then, I suppose, to make decisions on the back of that, and to think, in a creative way, being aware of your biases. And I suppose essentially I often like to think of this as kind of joining the dots. So you're joining the dots between, say, what the numbers and the analysis are telling you, and what, kind of maybe the challenges or opportunities are within the business, and using that power of critical thinking to bring them together, to propose solutions, to propose ideas, to inform strategy within the organization. So it's really just about building that analytical capability. Yes, there are courses in this space, but really one of the best ways of building your critical thinking is through experience. Really, it's about, asking questions, being curious, learning about what's going on around you, and not being afraid to constructively challenge, to get the information to inform, I suppose, your thought processes. And it's really, again, Stephen mentioned this, is kind of moving away from, that historical kind of number crunching, dare I say, more into, kind of analysis, judgment, and decision making, and starting to shape the business and the organization and the sector for the future. And that's all underpinned by your ability to think critically. Moving on then, empathy is another skill set, combined with self-care, which I'll touch on. But it's really being able to kind of connect with others around you, being able to identify what's going on with them from an emotional perspective, your own emotions as well, and being able to kind of manage those, but to use that empathy to connect, to build relationships, to motivate yourself and others around you. And it's very much identified as a core leadership skill, particularly if you're moving into the space of, I suppose, a senior leadership role, or where you're managing and developing people. So again, it comes down to your awareness, challenging your biases, getting feedback, and not being afraid to take that feedback. Sometimes, feedback isn't easy to take, but it's to, be able to take that on the chin and see it as a learning experience. And, by being more empathetic, it does allow you to connect better with people, and to build your network in a very intentional and authentic way. And I'm very much, you know, Dave mentioned networking as well. It's not just about, you know, how many connections you have on LinkedIn. It is about those meaningful connections and a meaningful support network around you. And I think a lovely way to build your empathy can sometimes be to get involved in, you know, charity and not-for-profit organizations. And I found that myself, even from being on the board of a charity and really connecting with an organization's purpose, you know, it's quite leveling, and, you know, really helps to kind of build your empathy. The next point I'll make is around self-care, and that is fundamentally important as you move throughout your career, because if you don't look after your mental health and well-being and your physical well-being indeed, you know, it's very difficult to move your career forward. So it is something you do really need to be mindful of, and we do have supports here within Chartered Accountants Ireland to help you in that space if it's something you would like further support with. Speaking of supports, Dave and Stephen are here today with us from our careers team, and the areas that we kind of provide support on to members is essentially at every stage of your career. It's giving you that guidance and that advice that you need, you know, to make the next move, or if you feel stuck or you're not sure, you're in a difficult situation, or you simply want to, you know, use us as a sounding board to kind of inform your next career move. We also work extensively with members who've taken a career break and are coming back. We also have a recruitment service, so companies come to us when they're specifically looking to recruit chartered accountants. Dave gave you an overview of some of the clients that we deal with, and that's just a snapshot of the organizations that we work with on a daily basis, who come to us specifically looking for chartered accountants to join their businesses in a whole range and I suppose a variety of roles. We also have a mentor program as well, so if you're interested in engaging with the mentor, let us know. So all of these supports are available to you free of charge as a member, so do engage with us. And I have the careers email address there on the screen. So we're very happy now, Dave, Stephen and myself, to take questions. Peter isn't in the room with us here today, but we're happy to take any questions that you might have. So please feel free to pop those in the chat, and we'll answer those queries and questions that you might have now, and happy to do so. Or indeed any feedback that you might have, or suggestions in terms of topics for future webinars, because we're always interested to hear about ideas and suggestions that you feel would be useful in terms of topics for webinars. So I'll just wait and see if you've any questions for us. Happy to take those. Great, and seeing good feedback there in terms of it being very useful and valuable webinar. So delighted to see that. And what we wanted to do today was to make this a very practical and relevant webinar for you all, just to give you some insights into the market, because there's a lot going on out there and we're all busy. So we just wanted to kind of cut through some of that I suppose noise, as it were, to give you some useful insights as well. Okay, so just give it another moment there. But do remember that you can reach out to us at careers@charteredaccountants.ie. I've one question here now, which is asking us who would be some of the biggest employers for sustainability. So to answer that question, I suppose the areas that we're seeing in terms of the sustainability piece is quite varied. It would include some of the organizations that Dave has mentioned. So you have some of the bigger, you know, state or semi-state organizations who are very much building out their you know, footprint in the market. There's also then a whole range of kind of SME providers in this space. There are also then a wide range of consultancies who have built out and developed their teams in this space as well. Not just the big four, but a number of I suppose boutique advisory and consultancy organizations as well. And then you have, I suppose, the larger corporates, PLCs and multinational organizations that have built out teams in this space as well, in terms of the reporting and accounting in this space. But we've also as well seen opportunities coming up in terms of, you know, risk and auditing and governance in this area as well. And I think that's certainly going to be an area that we see grow even further. So there's certainly a whole range of different, you know, employers or prospective employers that you could look at in this space. And some of it will come down to, you know, if there are certain aspects of sustainability that you personally are most interested in, or if there is a sector within that, because there are, you know, a range of opportunities. But it'll be an interesting one to see evolve, because I think as it does evolve, we'll see a wider range of opportunities coming up. And Peter alluded to some of those, and whereby he was saying that the role he's doing now didn't exist a few short years ago. So I think we will see that evolving. Perfect. Okay, so look, thank you so much everybody for joining us this afternoon. Please do reach out to us directly with any questions that you have, and I hope you all found it useful and valuable, and thank you so much for joining us.